Hey, how you guys doing today? Hope you guys are having a great one. It is that time of the week again where we get to talk about what happened in the week 3 of the XFL and then get to discuss the following week 4 games. If you are new to the channel, thank you for clicking on today's video. If you enjoy what you're watching about the XFL, hit the like and subscribe buttons and comment down below. Seems like with every week that goes by with the XFL season, just seems getting better and better with the play of football with each game. So let's talk about it. So week 3 started off with a game involving two teams looking for their first win of the season between the Seattle Sea Dragons and the Vegas Vipers. And those teams did not disappoint, with both the offenses making amazing plays all throughout and ended up having a wild finish to top it off. The game right out the gate started with the Vipers defense causing a forced fumble and recovering it early. With that, the Vipers offense would capitalize with scoring by pounding the rock on the 1-yard line. Seattle would soon respond with a scoring drive, ending with a 26-yard strike by Ben DiNucci to wide receiver Blake Johnson close to the end of the first quarter. In the second quarter, both teams would then go on to score a field goal while making big plays in the air while both dominating on the run game. Vegas would then miss a field goal right before half, entering halftime 9-9. The second half started off with a big heads-up play by the Vipers wide receiver Jeff Badet with his 56-yard catch and run, fooling the defense for a split second, thinking he was down. That play led to a read option touchdown play from quarterback Brett Hundley, who seems to be the guy going forward for Vegas. After a badly thrown pick by Ben DiNucci, though, Vegas would score a field goal, making it 20-9. Seattle would then come back with a big-time touchdown to Josh Gordon for a touchdown, making a beautiful tiptoe catch in the back corner of the end zone, looking like the guy who many of us saw in the NFL. After another field goal by Seattle, though, Vegas would score a huge 50-yard catch and run effort play by John Levitt, being so wide open, extending their lead 26-18. After that score from Vegas, Seattle took over the rest of the game with 10 minutes left in the ball game itself. The Sea Dragons would score 2 touchdowns late to end up taking the lead. The first was a response to the Vegas touchdown with another score from Ben DiNucci to wide receiver Jawan Green from 22 yards out. The other was the game-winning throw on the biggest moment of the game. On 4th down with about a minute left, Ben DiNucci launched the ball to Josh Gordon, and Josh looked like Flash Gordon because he made another great run and catch play. He basically backpedaled and then ran around the DBs and ran into the end zone like he was in his 20s making plays in the NFL. With that catch, the Sea Dragons would end up ending the game 30-26, getting their first win of the season. To kick off the Sunday games, we started with the highest scoring game of the season, topping off the game the day before, with the Battlehawks going to play the Defenders in a highly anticipated game, with both these teams being 2-0 coming into this one. Both teams had plenty of highlights on both sides, starting hot with DC scoring 2 quick touchdowns early on in the first quarter. The first from Jordan Ta'amu, scoring his first passing touchdown of the season to tight end Ethan Wolf 7 yards out. Just another way to show you that they're that committed to the run game. A couple plays prior to that touchdown, they had their biggest passing play of the season for 58 yards out of nowhere. The second score was the drive after, when A.J. McCarron threw a costly pick six to safety Michael Joseph, putting his name already in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year with 2 pick sixes in 3 weeks. The Battlehawks and A.J. were able to respond well off the turnover by going 5 for 6, 70 yards, and a passing touchdown to running back Brian Hill, as well as converting on a 2-point conversion with a pass to wide receiver Darius Shepard, making it 14-8. After that, there was a sequence of fumbling the ball and punting all throughout the second quarter. It was until the Battlehawks offense scored with 3 seconds before halftime with a great pass from AJ to Hakeem Butler on the goal line, heading into halftime 14-14. In the second half, DC would score a field goal off their first drive. Then St. Louis would respond quickly with a 72-yard kickoff return, followed by a 23-yard pass to Jake Sutherland for the score. After that, DC would march down the field with their rushing attack, mixing some passing plays, to end up with Jordan Ta'amu rushing it in. Along with the conversion, the Defenders would regain the lead 25-20. After those scores, St. Louis would struggle by fumbling right after that drive with a sack from Davin Bellamy, then punt, then would fail on downs with an incomplete pass on 4th down. While that happened, DC scored a field goal at the start of the 4th quarter and then would score a big-time touchdown off a 12-play drive, ending with Derek King running the offense inside the 10-yard line, scoring a quick slant pass to Chris Blair. Then, after DC punts the ball late in the 4th quarter, St. Louis tries to pull off another miracle like they had the previous 2 weeks. The offense was actually able to score despite throwing an interception on the 1-yard line, because DC would mess up the snap with St. Louis recovering, then score, and make it a 1-score game with some seconds left. The Battlehawks would then go for a 4th and 15 instead of the onside kick rule to sadly fail with an incomplete pass, which would end the wild contest between two great teams after a brawl at the end. With all the heat and the hostility at the end of that game, you know that they will see each other again in a few weeks. The next game on the slate for the XFL was the Guardians traveling over to Arlington to play the Renegades. The Guardians were looking for their first win of the season, starting 0-2, and then with Arlington trying to get back on track after a loss last week. All in all, this game was a physical defensive game as both defenses made huge plays, whether it was one of Arlington's fumble recoveries or Orlando stuffing the running attack for the Guardians, only allowing 2.5 yards per carry. Starting off, Orlando scored first with a field goal, which is an ongoing trend for Orlando, but they have not been able to keep that going throughout each game. Arlington would then get a great fumble recovery forced by Edmund Robinson and then make a field goal of their own. After that, not a lot really happened offensively other than fumbling and great football by the defenses. Though in the first play of the 4th quarter, Orlando was first to strike again with a touchdown from a rushing Paxton Lynch, lowering his shoulder, just trucking his way for a 3-yard touchdown, topping off an 11-play drive. Arlington would then respond with their own 13-play drive, in which Kyle Slaughter, who was making his first start, went 5 for 5 passing after getting sacked and including a 17-yard passing touchdown to wide receiver Tyler Vaughns. With Arlington converting the 1-point try and Orlando failing, the score heading into the last drive for the Guardians was 10-9. Sadly, after a big-time sack late by Will Clark, the Guardians would end up failing on 4th down and lose to Arlington, falling to an 0-3 record. For the last game of the Sunday games and Week 3, we got the San Antonio Brahmas coming off their first win against a really good Houston Roughnecks team on Sunday Night Football. With two great quarterbacks so far this season, I was pretty excited to see what would happen. On the opening kickoff starting the game, San Antonio's Travis Johnson had a great 59-yard kickoff return, setting up the first scoring drive for the Brahmas as quarterback Jack Cohn, who's been on fire so far this season, threw a dart to TJ Vosher coming off of the slant for a 9-yard touchdown. Houston would then march down the field, going 5 for 6 on passing for 32 yards and score a touchdown from quarterback Brandon Silvers, throwing a tight pass in the red zone to John Trey Kirkland. Kirkland would go on to catch another touchdown from Silvers later in the second quarter, topping off his day with 2 touchdowns and 77 yards total receiving. Then Silvers would throw another touchdown with a pass to Deontay Burnett for 18 yards the drive after, really extending their lead 22-8 at halftime. After a couple punts to kick off the second half, San Antonio finally made a big play on defense with an interception from Cameron Kelly jumping the route, giving the Brahmas some life because that pick gave the offense an important drive, which led to another score for the offense as they marched down the field and pounded the ball with a 2-yard rush from Jaquez Patrick, bouncing the play to the outside. What helped set up that play, though, was the defensive PI on the Roughnecks DBs on an important 4th down. After that score, both teams did not play particularly well, with the Houston DBs basically giving San Antonio great field position with penalties, especially on the last drive for the Brahmas. where Jack Cohn threw it up to a receiver on a 3rd down in the red zone, and you could clearly see the pass interference, even though the defense of Houston did make some big plays when they needed to, like the crazy interception in the 4th quarter from Ajin Harris, where he basically took it from the receiver in midair, or even stopping the Brahmas on the last play of the game. All in all, Houston moves on to a 3-0 record and moves on to a big opportunity next week to continue that record. All right, now that we are moving on from week 3, we are looking forward to week 4 with our predictions. Starting with the Houston Roughnecks traveling over to play the Orlando Guardians. I'm going to take Houston with this one. I know that sounds bad, but I only mean that because Houston obviously has the better team right now on paper, and Orlando has a lot to work on. On to the next one, we're going to be talking about San Antonio traveling over to Seattle to play the Sea Dragons. I'm going to take the Sea Dragons, and I'm going to stick to the Sea Dragons wagon on this one because they're coming off a huge win against the Battlehawks, and they're obviously feeling great and confident. The only thing that they have to worry about, I think, is the fact that Ben DiNucci throws reckless picks in games, and that could really cost them, and the Dragons need to look out for that. On to the Arlington Renegades traveling over to St. Louis to play the Battlehawks. With St. Louis having their first home game, I'm sure that crowd is going to be loud, and the Battlehawks are going to be hyped for the fact that it's a home game. So, because of the atmosphere and the Battlehawks offense still playing well against the Defenders, I'm taking St. Louis. Speaking of the Defenders, on to the last game of week 4, we're talking about the Vegas Vipers traveling over to play the DC Defenders. I am going to take DC with this one because not only did they basically dominate Vegas in the second half of their game at Vegas in week 2, Vegas allowed almost 150 rushing yards in week 3 against Seattle, so DC is going to do well, especially at home with the best crowd in the XFL so far. All right, and with that concludes the video for this week on recapping week 3 and giving my early predictions for week 4. Thank you for clicking on today's video. If you enjoyed it, please click the like and subscribe buttons. And again, let me know in the comments what you think, and hope you guys have a good one.